Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Deep Thoughts, or as always, my extended thoughts on a specific episode of a seasonal show. Now, this is going to be a little bit different, as you can tell by the thumbnail and the title. It's not exactly going to be about seasonal anime. It's going to be about a show that has already happened in the past, that being Re:Zero. Now, me talking about this might be pretty interesting for some of you, considering that Re:Zero and I have had quite the interesting relationship over the years that ever since that first season came out. It was very early in the start of my little YouTube escapades. Actually, I think the first time I talked about it was the second episode of the Kotatsu, which is our original podcast before the Kotatsu kind of dissolved into just doing yearly Annie Awards. Some of you may know, like, the Kotatsu Annie Awards. The Kotatsu Annie Awards used to be a maybe bi-monthly podcast. Twice every month you'd get like a Kotatsu podcast. Now that eventually became Isekaiwa podcast, so it's not like that went away. Most of the people, actually all of the people who are in Kotatsu are in Isekaiwa podcast. But back then, when we were just starting, we had our second episode was all about the start of that particular anime season. I don't even remember which season it was, but Re:Zero was like the hot button topic. And oh man, it was, keep in mind, like, this was the second episode of what we were calling the chillest anime podcast. And it immediately just devolved into me versus Sloan, Ku, and Sun, especially Sun. Just like a one-sided, like, just demolishing of me because I was the only one who didn't like it. I thought Re:Zero was really dumb and boring and generic, and everybody else was like, what? And just destroyed me. And I held that belief so strongly because it had almost become part of my identity online at one point that, oh, this is the guy who doesn't like Re:Zero. So it's funny knowing now that I actually really love the show. That I wish I could go back and tell a younger me, like, hey man, your opinion on the show is going to do a total 180 when you finally get over yourself and just enjoy things. And that's one of the things that I kind of want to specifically hone in on, is that Re:Zero reminded me, like, it's cool to enjoy things. Like, being the guy who hates everything is actually really depressing and boring, and it's not fun. Sure, like, those sort of polarizing opinions tend to get more views online, but it's also good to be positive and also to kind of get over yourself. Like, for me, watching Subaru learn to stop being so damn selfish and get over himself was almost like a learning lesson for me, like, to stop being so, like, negative and about things and, like, trying to be this, like, angry guy to get views online because I wasn't being me, you know? And watching Re:Zero was like I genuinely learned a life lesson from watching the show that I originally thought was just generic and stupid and boring, and turns out is really great and pretty and fun. Now, that said, I'm still not the biggest fan of the first and second arcs of this show. Now, Reinhard is like my favorite part of the first arc. When he shows up, the red-haired character, I'm pretty sure it's Reinhard. I could be wrong. Let me look that up. Reinhard von Austria. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yeah, Reinhard was my favorite part of the first arc because I just, like, him showing up was like, it felt like he had jumped out of a totally different series. He is certainly like the OP character who, like, blah blah blah. He's like, to me, like, the closest analogy I can think of is that he's basically like Kirito. Essentially, he's just overpowered, got the sword, like, nobody can stop him. At least that's certainly how he seemed in that first arc. But yeah, I thought it was kind of generic. I had seen the whole, like the character dies and comes back and stuff like Groundhog and stuff outside of anime. So to me, it wasn't like a big shock, like, oh man, like, it was an interesting hook. I just didn't feel like they really nailed it, and especially at the time, I thought it was, like, really stupid. But now that I've grown to actually, like, give a damn about the show and actually care about these characters, Subaru's, like, return from death, it gets more interesting the further in we get, as it really starts to affect him, and you see that he's genuinely scared to use it. Like, when everybody shouted, including me, keep in mind, I was shouting stuff at Subaru, was just like, just keep dying until you figure out the whole pattern. Like, that's what I thought was gonna happen, that Subaru would die and learn all her moves, and then, like, he'd be able to take down that Elsa chick. I think that's her name. If that's her name, I'm gonna be really impressed. But yeah, like, to me, I was just like, just die. But the show goes more interesting because why would you want to do that? Like, dying sucks. Like, so of course Subaru's like, no, I don't want to die. Even if I know I'm gonna come back, that super sucks and hurts and it's scary, so no. I actually, at the time, thought that was like such a cop-out, but now that I'm able to stop being on my high horse about isekai, because that was a big thing, is I was like, oh, all isekai stocks, so like, why can't it just be fantasy, blah, blah, blah. Now that I've finally gotten off that high horse, to me, it's actually more interesting that Subaru doesn't use, like, Return from Death all the time. Because obviously dying sucks and it's scary and it makes Subaru more human. And that's probably the biggest thing about the show that I grew to care about, was that Subaru was so genuinely frustratingly human. Like, he was such a human character. He was, like, I actually started relating to him at points. So, like, his selfishness, his cowardice. I hate to admit it, but those are negative elements about myself that I actually started to see in Subaru. So watching him overcome that, it was a treat, and I was not expecting to even come back to the show at all. But yeah, that's much later though. Like I said, it took me a little while, but rewatching this was tough because like I said, the first arc I thought was really generic at the time, and to an extent, I still think it's not the best arc of the show, and it's not a super great introduction to a lot of those characters. The second arc's a little bit better, but there's little things like Rem randomly stopping while they're running away and getting trampled and stuff like, or I think Subaru knocks her out of this, something like that. Like little elements where I'm like, why would the characters do that? That doesn't make any sense. Especially knowing what we know about them later. But yeah, the first and second arc I wasn't super keen on. But yeah, going back to watch them again, I did notice things that I liked a lot more. The animation is gorgeous and the character designs are beautiful. Let it be known that even at the time, this was a really pretty show. Like, even with me being like Captain Herb, like angry internet reviewer, I still thought the show was incredibly pretty. And I think I even said that in that Kotatsu podcast, which I'm not gonna link because I hated going back to listen. I listened to it when Sun linked it to me, and I was like, oh, I'm so wrong. I'm so embarrassingly wrong. But I also didn't want to get rid of it because, you know, it's a sign of growth. But yeah, as I was saying, I went back to watch the show not that long ago. It was pretty, I want to say maybe like a week or two after the announcement of Season 2, maybe? How long ago was Season 2 announced? It doesn't matter. After the announcement of Season 2, I was like, okay, you're going to be asked to talk about it. You're probably going to want to cover it on In a Minute, because again, it's going to pull in the views. So may as well watch it. And I was fully expecting to finish the show and be like, this show is so boring and so generic. I can't believe everybody loves this damn show. But it's gonna rake in the views, so let's go. And I know that's stupid and dumb, but like it was how I felt at the time. And so I started watching it again. And keep in mind too, I have seen this show. I've tried to watch this show 4 times prior. I tried to watch it once during like when it came out, and then about 3 more times after that, and every time I could not get past that damn house, that damn manor. I couldn't get past the second arc. I thought it was so bad. And then this time, I just sort of like sat myself down and was like, no, because I have a very hard time binge watching shows. I don't know what it is, but I get fidgety and I need to be doing something. Like I can sit down for like an episode or 2, but then I start getting like really fidgety. I even have that problem with some movies, honestly. And it's just like I feel like I need something to do while I'm watching something. Like just even as a kid, when I was like in class, I would like twirl pencils and like toss erasers back between both my hands, like just something to keep myself occupied. I should work on that, but it's for some reason I just forced myself to sit down. I'm like, no, you're going to finish this damn show. This is try number 5. Like it's gotta click. And finally it clicked. Like once I got I think it was when, because for those who don't know, and Evanito and a lot of people online are like, what? But Ram is my favorite girl. And when Ram, it's the episode where Ram and Subaru go back into the forest to try to save Rem, after Rem's like going full bloodlust mode. And that episode, I was like, oh, I kind of care. Like, I suddenly care. Like, I specifically care about Ram, but I like also want Rem to be safe. And Subaru's kind of growing on me, very slowly, but he was at that time. And so I was sort of like engaged, but not quite. And then the infamous like fight happens where Subaru gets the ever-loving hell knocked out of him by Best Boy, whose name is escaping me. Let me look it up again. It was Julius Eculius. I don't know, but anyway, it was Julius. Julius is actually like the character I grew to. I cared more about Julius than Reinhard by the end. I love the Knights, basically. The Knights are like, all the Knights are pretty much my favorites. Old Man Rom is another one I really like, and Wilhelm is the friggin', he's the best, he's the beast. But Julius is the one that I ended up caring about the most, because he was much more of like what I wanted Subaru to be. Just like a flawed character, yeah, but he also was like aware that he screwed up, whereas Subaru took him forever to realize that he was being a douche. Well, it took all the way to episode 18, which that is the episode where I got it. Once we get to episode 18, titled From Zero, totally changed my opinion. It's such a well-written, just piece of fiction. Like, it's just this brilliant conversation, and it's a conversation. The whole episode is nothing but a conversation between these two characters, and it's two characters that weren't even my favorite characters at that point. Just these two characters just spill their guts and just tell each other how they're feeling, what they want, what they're scared of, what they wish they could be, what they wish they could do, and how they hate themselves, but at the same time they care about the other one, and the other one wants the other one to be better and help each other. And I'm not doing it justice, obviously, because in these videos they're all off the top of my head. They're unscripted, so I'm not doing it justice. But episode 18 was such a gut punch that I wasn't prepared for, and that's like, Subaru was a character that like frustrated the hell out of me. He was so annoying and irritating, and I didn't get him, and I was like, why is he this way? And then by the time we get to episode 18, like the whole time I'm thinking, like, why is this character so frustrating? Why is the show like so annoying? It's dragging its feet and introducing all these different characters, and it's just driving me crazy. And episode 18, when you realize they pulled the Kingdom Hearts 2 on you, they pulled a Roxas on you, and it was all prologue, and I was like, oh. And then when you hear Subaru just be like, I am the worst, I'm a bad person, I'm not a hero, and he just spills his guts, and I'm scared. He's scared to even use his special power that makes him different. Like, it made him go from this frustrating character who I didn't understand why he was being written the way that he was, and it totally flipped it on its head and made me realize, like, oh my god, he's meant to be he's meant to be essentially kind of slothful when you think about it. Like, he's meant to be this like character who, like, he has a good heart, but it's clouded by like this negative bile. Like, he's such an otaku. Like, he's such an otaku, and he just feels like the world is indebted to him, like the world should bow to him because he's such a nice guy. He's the epitome of the nice guy trope. Like, he thinks that because he is nice, the world should be nice back, and that ain't the way things go. And Subaru learning that lesson, finding his own confidence, and like basically becoming the hero that Amelia needed him to be, and it wasn't for him. That's what made me love his character. It stopped being about him, because everything was about him, and it drove me crazy because he was being such a selfish asshole. But sorry, YouTube censor bot, but when he was being such a jerk, like, and so selfish and self-righteous, and when it stopped being about him. And Rem, it should have been about Rem. It should have. I do kind of wish, like, he just was like, Rem clearly cares about me, but at the same time, I'm like, I wish that's how things could have gone, but I respect that he's like, Rem, like, you are my dearest friend, but I just don't reciprocate those feelings. Again, incredibly human. Like the characters, I went from thinking all the characters were planks of wood to realizing that the characters were incredibly deep. They were deep, if you will. But yeah, I went from thinking the only thing about the show that was good was the animation in the world, into thinking that not only is the animation in the world even better, but the characters are just as great, and the story is fascinating, and I want to know more about the witch cult and what's going on. And yeah, I don't know, it totally changed my tune. Seeing Subaru stop being so negative, and like, and in his own, like, the thing is, because outwardly he's positive, like he seems like a positive dude, but he's so negative, like when you get down to it, and seeing him shirk that off, and like finally, like, become the hero that Amelia needed him to be, that Rem knew he could be, and that he wished he could be, was such a moving moment for me. That whole episode, like I said, is one long conversation. I love like dialogue. Well-written character dialogue is like my favorite. And seeing Subaru want to change and be more positive made me want to change and be more positive. And it's when I started to realize, like, yeah, I do share a lot of characteristics with this character, and I try to be better than those negative characteristics, and I try to rise above. And so knowing that Subaru was going to try to do the same thing, it legitimately made him like one of my favorite characters. Like, Subaru went from being a character that I thought was like just stupid to being this character that I was really rooting for by the end. And I remember like laughing. I even said this on Twitter, like, I'm proud of you, you big dumb idiot. Like, he finally learned, and he grew, and I cannot believe that it's actually getting a season 2. I can't imagine how ReZero fans must feel, like people who were there from the jump. Like, that's like watching that week to week would have been such a cool experience, and I ruined that for myself because I was being Subaru. I was being my own personal Subaru. But yeah, I'm glad I finally got around to watching it. I don't know. Thanks for existing, I guess, ReZero. You really made me want to be more positive, ironically, from a show that's all about suffering. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you didn't mind my unscripted, unfiltered, off the top of my dome thoughts on ReZero. I'd like to do this for more shows as we go along. It probably sometime either on Wednesday or Thursday, because I believe those are my days off, where I don't have any seasonal shows to cover. Probably going to be making more of these than Minutes in the future, because I like making these more, and I feel like I get much more of my thoughts out, obviously, because these are like 10 minutes plus, or actually, from what I'm seeing over on Audacity, this is touching like 20 minutes, so I should probably wrap this up. This is becoming more of a podcast, but yeah. But before we go, as always, I have to give a huge shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, in particular our friends in the Earl Grey tier: Veridin, Urza, Evil, Tristan, No For Nothing, Dominic, Caden Fate, Gabriel, Sipco Games, and Opinionated Slime. If you feel like I have earned it, be sure to check us out over on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can help me grow this channel into something I can do full time, and that would be a tremendous dream of mine, and yeah, hopefully we get there someday. But that's all for now, so until our next meeting, stay rad and don't scary.